Good morning, everybody. If you guys can hear us, I hope so. If not, just send us a message in the chat if there's any sound problems. But
or turn your volume up.
that would help. I want to thank everybody for coming. This is another Zoom meeting that Hapco is hosting, and Paul Cohen, our legal counsel, will speak on two issues. But we'll start with the evictions changes, which essentially, I guess, changed through the municipal court orders. I'll kind of do a little bit of back and forth and play the uneducated landlord, which most times I am, with Paul at different times. But I'll ask Paul to kind of briefly go over what has changed. At some point, we're going to take questions, and what that basically is going to mean is if everyone can, there's a button that allows you to raise your hand, and you're whether you're using your mobile phone or your computer. We used to do the chat, but we're going to try a little bit differently, and allow each person to speak one by one, and I'll basically choose that person when I see the hand being raised. It pops up on my screen anyway. So, Paul, you can get started.
Hey, thanks, Brian, and thank you all for coming. Just a quick disclaimer that I give during all of these talks at the beginning, and that is the information that I give you today is only good for today. As we all know, things change so quickly these days that whatever I'm telling you today could be totally useless information as of tomorrow when some new law, order, or regulation gets passed. In fact, yesterday, a new law just got passed, which I'll get to in a couple of minutes. First, I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of the new CDC order, which extended the eviction moratorium under the federal law to June the 30th. You should all be aware of that by now. Okay, see, people are shaking their heads, so that's good. Okay. Along with that, the Bureau of Consumer Protection came out with an order yesterday, which says that you now have to give a separate notice of rights to the tenants before you can start an eviction case. Very, very important that you follow this new regulation, because if you don't, you'll be in violation of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which has all sorts of penalties that attached to it. So make sure that you go ahead and put that notice in your notices to quit, and any complaint that's filed for eviction, it has to be included in that as well. We're going to get that notice up on the website. Should happen in the next couple of days. Like I said, the order just came out yesterday, but just want to make sure that all of you are aware of it. It's very important that you follow that regulation. It's basically a 4-line statement that has to go on your notices. So you're going to want to make sure that that's included, because if it's not, you're going to have a problem. All right. Now, recently, the court came out and said that before you can start an eviction case, you now have to file for rental assistance. So we should know by now that you had to send out the notice of rights, the hardship repayment notice, and you had to file for diversion. Well, now, in addition, before you can file an eviction complaint, this is for non-payment of rent, you have to file for rental assistance. Once you file for the rental assistance, you then have to wait 45 days before you can file a complaint. This is just in Philadelphia. This is a Philadelphia order that was issued by the Philadelphia Municipal Court. Now, you may be aware that the eviction diversion program ended as a requirement as of March the 31st. So, as a legal requirement as part of the city ordinance, it's no longer required that you go to diversion. This is very confusing, however, because the court order, which says that you have to apply for rental assistance before you can file an eviction complaint, says that once you apply for rental assistance, it will automatically enroll you in the diversion program. So even though under the city ordinance, the diversionary program ended as a requirement, it still exists if you want to do it voluntarily, but as a requirement, it ended on March the 31st. But as a result of the court order, it's sort of like a backdoor requirement now that you go to diversion, because you have to go and apply for rental assistance. And once you apply for the rental assistance, you will automatically be enrolled in diversion. What does this all mean as far as the legalities of it? Not sure. We're working through that, and that's part of my disclaimer from the beginning of this seminar, that things just change so quickly. So we're waiting on clarification from that from the court. As of Friday, they hadn't figured out as well how to get you automatically enrolled in the diversion program. So I haven't checked yesterday. I don't know if they figured that out yet. But as of Friday, even though you applied for the rental assistance, you weren't automatically enrolled in the diversion program. So as I said, this is all evolving. But what's going to happen is once you apply for the rental assistance, you will automatically be enrolled in the diversion program. In order to be able to apply for rental assistance, however, it's no longer the pre-registration that you were doing before, pre-registration where you were registering all your properties. What's required now is you actually have to apply for the rental assistance. The problem you'll have is that if your tenant hasn't already applied, then you can't apply for total rental assistance. You can just register your property, but you can't actually apply for the rental assistance without the tenant's permission. So what happens is if the tenant has applied, you can then apply, you're good, you can go get the rental assistance. My suggestion to you, however, is not to rely on the tenant to do this. What you want to do is you want to apply on the tenant's behalf. So you have to get the tenant's approval to apply on their behalf. You have to get some type of documentation as to their income. And then you'll be able to go online and apply on their behalf. You can apply as the landlord. It'll all be merged together and you'll be able to get the rental assistance. Hapco is now offering a service where Hapco can do this for you. So Hapco was already doing through their legal services, through their attorneys that, I guess the Barrett's law firm, what they were doing is they were applying for the hardship, we're sending out the notice for the hardship repayment plan, as well as the notification of rights, and applying for diversion. Now, in addition, what they will be doing is applying for the rental assistance. My suggestion to you is to let them do it all, because it'll be a lot smoother, easier. Things will go through quicker. You'll get your money quicker. And if you don't get your money, you will have already started the process so that you won't get delayed to be able to file for the eviction. It also streamlines everything where it's now one person or one company is applying on behalf of both the landlord and the tenant. So what will happen is they will get your permission to apply on your behalf. They'll get the tenant's permission to be able to apply on the tenant's behalf. And then you just have one centralized company applying for the rental assistance with the hardship repayment notice being sent out and the diversionary program enrollment, which is not mandatory, but might be. We're not really sure. Okay. So I'm hoping that all makes sense to everybody. I'm sure you guys all have some questions. So if you do, I can take some questions now.
If you do have questions, if you can hit the raise hand button, that'll probably streamline things a little bit better.
Jim has a question, Jim Bennett.
Hold on, I'm just going to go one at a time because it pops up on my screen who I can let in. So I'll start with Stacy Duke.
Hi, this is Stacy. Thanks for taking my question.
Hi,
So
Stacy.
I have already sent in my information for eviction for a tenant. And then I have started the application for the rental assistance, but we're stalled. She has not given me that final affidavit or that sheet where she has to sign. She hasn't given that to me. And it's been like 4 days. So should I just say forget it and just go ahead and have you guys at the office file the paperwork for filing and have you guys also do the rental assistance for me?
I would, because what that will do is they'll be able to get a housing counselor assigned to the case right away.
Okay.
And when you go through the attorneys, it'll happen a lot quicker than if you try and do it on your own. And then once the housing counselor is assigned, the housing counselor will work with the attorneys to be able to get the tenants information and get the tenants to apply. The problem we're running into is that the tenants don't trust the landlord. I know that's
Exactly.
shocking to a lot of you, but the tenants are like, you know what? We're not paying rent. Nobody's evicting us. Nothing's happening. We're good. They don't want to do anything. They're very suspicious of doing anything. And obviously it's not all tenants, but there are a lot that fall into that category. And the ones that do, what we're finding is that if we get a third party, like a housing counselor involved in it, then they trust that housing counselor a lot more. And the housing counselor basically says, hey, this is free money. Take the money. This is a great thing. You ought to be doing it. And they're able to work with them a lot better, and we're able to get the assistance. If they don't work with us or the housing counselor, then they're going to be evicted. And then once the eviction process starts and they see what's happening, then a lot of these tenants are waking up as well. So yes, I would suggest that if you're unable to do it on your own, that you get Hapco involved right away.
Thanks, Stacy.
Thanks, guys.
Rachel Brassus, I apologize if I messed your name up.
Thank you. It's okay. It's Brocious. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. I actually have two questions. One about the new information you just gave and one that I came with, if that's all right.
Sure.
So it said, you said that we now have to file for rental assistance before evicting. I don't know if I'm understanding this correctly. How can we file for rental assistance to evict a tenant if they don't let us file on their behalf for the rental assistance?
That's the best question. We've been trying to figure out that answer.
Okay, fun.
Yeah, no, seriously, this is a problem.
Yeah.
And we raised that to the court. This is the only court in the United States where you need the tenant's permission to be able to file a lawsuit against them.
Yeah, that's
basically what's happened. You cannot file against them without their permission. So what we're doing is we're trying to get the court to change that. That's the first thing. But aside from that, the law says you have to make a good faith attempt, and we're relying on that. And the court is basically saying that if you go ahead and make that good faith attempt to apply for the rental assistance, and if you read the ordinance carefully, there's an or in there, and it says apply for the rental assistance or go to diversion.
Okay.
So if what we're doing is we're applying for the diversion, we're trying to get the rental assistance. You're at least pre-registering your property. You've done everything that you can. We get the housing counselor involved. We believe that in 45 days, you'll be able to file the eviction complaint, arguing that you made a good faith attempt to do that.
Okay.
And hopefully the court will realize, like, I'll be shocked if they don't, but I've been shocked before. But hopefully they'll realize you made that good faith attempt, you tried, and you should be able to go ahead and proceed. But that's a great question.
Okay. And then we, for example, have like 3 current cases that we already went to court and filed for writ of possession and sheriff lockout. What will happen with those?
So my suggestion is to try and get the rental assistance for those people.
Okay.
If you get the rental assistance, it covers up to 18 months of assistance.
Even if it's for non-rent payment, like for non-payment reasons for eviction?
So I'm assuming they also owe you money.
Yeah.
So there is a piece of it that they owe you. You
Okay.
can get the rental assistance for that piece. If you do evict them, you cannot get the rental assistance. So you have to make a business decision, which is more important to you, getting the possession or getting the money.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hey, Paul, can I actually, thank you, Rachel. Two people just text me, and it kind of falls in my lap as well. If someone already had a eviction that was started prior to the pandemic starting, which means that wherever it falls at, as far as the case being accepted in the court, and they went on a payment plan, that mediation occurred prior to the pandemic. What step do they take now? If they try to move forward to eviction, you're saying that you can't get rental assistance. If you get rental assistance and they still live there, what does that mean though?
So if you get rental assistance, after the rental assistance ends, you can't evict a tenant for 90 days. That's the one downside to accepting the rental assistance, that you can't evict them for 90 days after getting the rental assistance. But in that case that you just mentioned to me, what I would do is apply for the rental assistance and try and get the rental assistance from April 1st of 2020 forward. You get that back rent paid. That's awesome.
Okay.
Then let them stay. And if they're causing a problem, evict them 90 days after the end of the rental assistance. At least you got your money. And quite frankly, right now, it's very difficult to evict anybody, whether it's non-payment or otherwise. So if it's a really egregious case, yes, we can get an eviction to go through. Most routine cases, it's very difficult to get that eviction to go through. It's already going to be delayed to the middle of May, and I'm guessing it might be delayed longer. So my suggestion to all of you is take the money.
Yeah. Okay. Next person is Joan Preston. Hey, Jim, I'm sorry. I see you there. Hit the button so you can pop up and be in line.
Who goes, Joan or Jim?
Joan, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My question is regarding the rental assistance. Is this ongoing or is this just for COVID?
So the rental assistance is for COVID, is the purpose of it, and it's to prevent people from being evicted is really the goal of it, because the theory is that when people are evicted, they end up homeless or in a congregate living arrangement, which spreads COVID more so than in a normal situation. The reality is that this money is now available through, right now, it's the end of December. It might be extended beyond that. They're talking about possibly extending it through 2025 if the money doesn't run out with the American Rescue Plan money. Okay. So if the person the requirements are they have to be at 80% of area median income. As long as they qualify for that and can show some type of COVID hardship where they lost income as a result of COVID, which is basically a checkbox now, affirming that they have lost the income, then they'll qualify for the rental assistance. The reality is that it's not the city's money, it's federal government money that is being distributed through the city. The city wants this money to be distributed. They want 100% of this money to go out. So they're looking to make that happen. Okay. So let's just say they're going to look very favorable on a tenant that's being evicted to stop them from being evicted by giving out this money.
Okay. And I have two more quick questions, if you don't mind. I think that's going to be kind of difficult for most landlords because in my situation, thank God she's gone. She was a terror, but she's gone. In situations like that, you have a group of people that don't want to cooperate, will not cooperate, and they're living rent free. And I just think that as a group of landlords, I think we need to strategize a little bit more to determine what we can do as a group, not be radical, but what we can do as a group rather than waiting for them to hand down instructions for us. And we're really at their mercy. I do think that, we could voice a little bit more so that, they will know that we're just not sitting here waiting for a handout, because I think it's ridiculous that the law has stooped to the point where tenants are allowed to live in somebody else's property, causing expenses, and yet we need their approval in order to get any funding. So those were my major concern. But thank God I'm stuck with getting my property rehab, but she's gone. So that's a blessing. I thank God for that. So love you all.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I agree with you 100%. And I'm sure everyone else on this call agrees as well.
Thank you. Jim Bennett.
Yeah. Hey, Paul.
Hi, Jim.
Hello. Just wanted to comment on the application for the rental assistance process. Based on the last meeting, we pre-registered about 20 or 25 properties, and we only focused on the tenants that seemed rent challenged. So we figured these are the folks who would really be interested. And we were amazed, out of the 20 or 25, only about 4 really followed through, and everybody else said, hey, I'm good, don't worry about it, I don't need any help, no, I don't qualify. But my biggest comment is we actually tried to do it all for them, and we sent out the authorization letters, and these 4 people signed it and sent it back. But we honestly could not begin to complete it for them because the volume of questions were crazy, and it was so intrusive as far as what they were asking for. We didn't have the information available. Give us the name of every person in your household, social security number of every person in the household, date of birth. Do you receive any child support? Do you receive any public assistance or food stamps or this, that, and the other thing? Does anyone else in your household work? We couldn't do it, so we had to push it back to the tenant, and only 4 of them cooperated. So I guess my concern is if that's my experience in a friendly situation, it can't get any better in an adversarial situation.
So as I mentioned before, and I understand what you're saying, it's good that you got the 4 for the other 16. Then if you go through Hapco, they can get the housing counselor involved in it right away, and hopefully the housing counselor can get the rest of the information from these people. I do have a lot of clients that are just actively going and seeking the information from the tenants, and the ones that aren't cooperating, they're reaching out to them more and more. I can tell you I've done seminars for tenants to explain to them the benefits of this program and why it's in their best interest to go ahead and apply. So yes, it's a steep uphill battle, but it's something that I think with a little bit of effort, or a lot of effort, we can get them to comply. The reality is it's a great thing for them. It's just a matter of getting them to understand that it's a great thing. It's free money.
One quick final question, Paul. If I had trouble today and I had to go through the process start to finish, when do you think I'd get my house back?
That's a great question. So I can answer that question today, but as I gave the disclaimer that that information will change probably within a week, a month, 2 months, what have you. So the federal moratorium under the CDC ends the end of June. Is that going to be extended? Don't know. So you have to wait at least 45 days. Let's say you started today, you did everything you were supposed to do. You waited 45 days to file for the eviction case. You're not getting a hearing probably for 2 to 3 months after that. And then will the evictions actually be happening 30 days from there? Don't know. Which is why I'm trying to tell everybody, take the money. Get as much money as you can. And seriously, work with these tenants. Figure out what you need to do to get these tenants to cooperate to get the money so that you can get the money, the assistance.
Hey, it's
Number one goal.
thanks, Jim. If we can try to get a couple more of these questions in before we move to the next topic, because it's already 10 o'clock. Daryl Stevens?
Yes, thank you. I got on a little bit late. My apologies. I only have one question. How much does it cost to have Hapco do the rental assistance?
1 second. Where is?
I believe it's $250.
Yeah, I should know, but I don't know.
And that's for the whole program. So they'll send out the hardship repayment notice, do the diversion, and help you with the rental assistance.
Now, one more thing I want to ask. If
Hey, you only got that's 2 questions.
I'm sorry.
I got it.
Go ahead, Daryl.
No, just a quick one. When you say repayment, does that mean the tenant has to repay that money at some point?
So if you're asking me about the hardship repayment notice, that was separate. That's really something that has to go out, but nobody's doing hardship repayment agreements now. They're getting the rental assistance. So the answer is no. Once you get the rental assistance, that does not have to get paid back.
Okay, that's what all I wanted to know.
It's free money. That's grab it.
Thanks, Daryl. There are a couple other people, but real fast, Paul.
Yes.
One person asked, is there a closure date for this rental assistance?
2025 is what they're talking about. We're waiting to see. So there was money that was appropriated through the Consolidated Appropriations Act back on December 27th of 2020. It was signed into law. That was the first tranche of money that was given out that the city got. And then the second tranche of money will be coming through the American Rescue Plan that was signed in March. The actual regulations, the federal regulations for that have not been passed yet. The city is assuming that they're going to have an additional 3 months that they can appropriate of rental assistance to make it a total of 18 months. Assuming that does happen, they'll have the 18 months of assistance, and they're talking about it running through 2025, assuming there's still money available. Once the money runs out, obviously, the program will end unless it gets reappropriated. So will more money come? Who knows?
Yeah. All right, 2 more people. Mary Harris.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? I had 2 things that I wanted to just briefly mention. I came across, in another discussion, mention of why isn't there some kind of insurance available to cover lost rents for landlords. And I did some digging and I actually found something called Sturdy Insurance Company that will provide up to, it says 4 to 6 months. And I plugged in some numbers for a property that I have just as a, for example, to get some more information. And for $490 a year, they would insure my $1,495 rental property for 4 months of lost rent if the tenants stop paying. And so I thought that would be a neat thing for Hapco to just kind of reach out and try to get an affiliation, because I had, as a landlord for 15 years, I never even knew this existed. So that was news to me, number one.
Let me just address that real quick.
Yeah.
Insurance companies make a lot of money. They don't lose money. So if you just think about that concept, so you're going to be paying whatever you're paying. It's, obviously it's a risk and you spread the risk, and I get what insurance is all about. But the reality of the situation is that the insurance company is not doing it to lose money. So if they're going to be making money on your money, what does that tell you? Just
right. Yeah. So, and generally speaking, I'm aware insurance is kind of like a casino. Do it long enough, you are going to lose. They're going to take your money. I get it. But that's expensive. So $490 for what turns out to be $6,000 of rent coverage. I think that might be some kind of baked in, similar to the American Water Resources, that it's gradually creeping up. So that was just thought number one. And then the second one is, in other industries like the mortgage industry, student loans, even auto insurance, there is a system in place that's federally funded to protect investors from losing money when people don't keep their financial commitments, when consumers default. And I'm wondering, is there any national lobby that even represents landlords, and particularly small landlords? Because as we saw during this pandemic, this was a group that was left out really from the get-go, from the loan programs, not considered gig workers, not considered self-employed. And so now there's going to be a new law, probably going to happen in Philly, that we can't use credit scores, bankruptcies, or prior evictions, which to me, my head almost exploded. So saying that you're now forced to rent to people who have a high likelihood of defaulting, I wondered, why can't we have something like the auto industry, which is assigned risk for people who have lots of marks on their record, and they're undesirable as a financial risk. So, but I'm just curious, and I know you're not a lobbyist, I know that's not your function here, but I wanted to just put it out there because a lot of noise has been made about, well, how would we lobby for bigger change? And to me, when I parse it out, as an industry, I don't think there's much protection for landlords, and it seems like it wouldn't be a huge fix. Well, it would, because it would be either a federal or a state-run program.
Mary, everything costs money. I think we forget that as investors.
So just putting that out there.
Yeah, I can answer that question though. So as a national organization, I am part of the National Apartment Association.
Okay.
They are very strong in lobbying. They are constantly at it. There's a great government affairs piece of that, which I'm a part of. And I do a lot of the work with them. I go to Washington every year. We meet legislators. We, I don't want to say storm the Capitol. It's not good in these times.
Yeah, you can't use that anymore.
No, but we go out and force, and there's literally hundreds of us that go and meet with all the different legislators. There's also the National Multi-Housing Association, NMHC, which is very strong. And those two organizations work very closely together. And then there's, for the smaller landlords, there's National RIA, which I'm also a part of. Which does a lot of lobbying down in Washington. So they are constantly fighting for landlords, both big and small. I could show you lots of position papers that they have. We're constantly fighting. It's a very, very uphill battle in this climate. It used to be a lot better. I can tell you, certainly in Pennsylvania, when we had different legislators there, we'll mention their names, things went a lot better for landlords than they are now. You have a Democratic governor. It's not real good in Harrisburg. City of Philadelphia is all Democratic, very liberal, and it's moving even further liberal. And there's no two-party system in Philadelphia. You got a one-party system. So whenever you have that, especially like in a big city, you have that in a lot of the big cities, it's very difficult to get legislation passed. And what you end up doing is you're basically on the defensive all the time. Because if you're the minority party or the minority organization, so to speak, then you can't get your bills introduced. All you're doing is fighting against other bills. And I can tell you that Hapco does an amazing job at it, that there are so many bills that you don't even know about because Hapco was able to get them killed before they even got introduced. So you don't see them. What you're seeing is the bills that actually get moved forward, and you're not also seeing what Hapco has done to make those bills a lot less onerous than they could have been had Hapco not been involved in it.
Right.
So,
has there been any dialogue at all about this thing that I'm talking about, though? A national reserve fund or a national insurance or a national protection?
Thanks, Mary. I'm going to.
Yep.
Sorry, I haven't seen anything with regard to that specifically.
Then we're going to do the last one, then we're going to move to the next topic, which actually Mary kind of touched on briefly, but Demetrius Ophius.
Good enough. Ophius, thank you. Good morning. I just had a quick question. I just did a visual inspection of a property for a lease renewal that's ending in 2 months. And, I found some significant damages during the inspection. The tenants aren't paying, but, there's damages to the property. With all that's going on right now, my thought process was just to give, a notice of non-renewal, like a good cause because of damages. Is there anything additional besides that would need to take place given all of the new requirements, as far as you know?
So if you're going to be asking for money that's owed, then you need to follow all the steps that I mentioned earlier.
So money owed because of damages, or because they're current on payments. That's the thing.
So the damages, if you read your lease agreement, I'm sure it says that the damages are considered additional rent.
Got it.
Because that's what you want to call it. That's the way you want to phrase a lease agreement. Everything that is owed, you want to call additional rent, because there's certain benefits that you have as a landlord for rent that is owed as opposed to other charges. You can evict them for non-payment of rent. So in essence, they owe you rent money. And because they owe you the rent money, you're going to have to go through the notification of rights, the hardship repayment notice, diversion plan, and applying for rental assistance, even though they probably don't even qualify. They might qualify, however. So one of the things you might think about is applying the money that they paid toward the damages first, which your lease should say that money goes to damages first, with the rent being owed last. Get your damages paid and let them apply for rental assistance for the rent money that's owed.
Okay.
Thanks, Demetrius.
Paul?
So we want to kind of move on to the next topic. If you have a couple people are raising their hands, unfortunately, we gotta keep it moving. If you didn't raise, you have the raise hand button. There's a in your screen. There's a button that's called reactions. For the next topic, when you have questions, hit that button that says raise hand and reactions. That's just pretty simple. The next topic, as many of you probably are aware, there's a proposed bill that's being put out in the city. I think the numbers are 210329 and 210330, that a few council members are sponsoring. And we're basically just going to ask Paul to briefly discuss what that may mean if it was voted on. And we'll ask questions at the end and discuss that as well.
And for those of you who didn't get your questions answered, I'll try and stick around after we're all done this for a little while and answer those questions as much as I can. So Mary had touched on the topic. Councilwoman Kendra Brooks introduced 2 bills. Keep in mind, these bills are not law yet. They've just been introduced. We don't know where these are going to go. There was just a lawsuit in Minneapolis challenging a similar bill that got affirmed. So is this something we may have to challenge at some point in time? Is this something that can get changed before it actually gets passed? Stay tuned on that, but want to make you all aware of this is what's out there, and this is what is potentially a bill that could get passed. The bill basically says that you have to have a uniform written rental screening criteria. So whatever your screening criteria is now, it has to be in writing, and you have to apply uniformly with regard to all your tenants. If you deny a tenant, you have to give them a plain statement of all the reasons for the denial. Okay. So you got to give them a written criteria that you have, or you have to have a written criteria. And if you turn them down, you have to give them a plain statement of all the reasons for the denial. The bill also says that you can't have just a blanket policy where if the person was previously evicted or has some type of bad credit, you just automatically exclude them. You can no longer have just a blanket policy which says that. You have to actually look at why they were evicted, and you have to go delve a little more into what their credit situation is. All right. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's not a law yet. We don't know how it's going to all shake out. But suffice it to say that if the person had an eviction on the record and it's more than 2 years old, you won't be able to consider it. If they have a judgment because of the eviction on the record, like a money judgment, you won't be able to consider that. If they had a judgment by agreement, which has been satisfied, they follow through on it, you won't be able to consider that in your screening criteria. If well, I shouldn't say naturally because you never know nowadays, but if they were evicted because they had some type of violent behavior or a dangerous criminal activity, then you can consider that. I'm guessing that they might put some time limit on that, just the way things are going, but they haven't as of yet. And in addition, the tenant is going to have a right to dispute your denial of their application. If they give a dispute, then you have to go and investigate and consider their reasons for the dispute. And it's either a dispute that they disagree with what you're saying, or they say that they have mitigating factors that you need to consider. One of the biggest problems with this bill is that while this is all being considered, you can't rent that unit out to another tenant unless you have 3 or fewer units, or the unit is vacant at the time that the person applies.
Paul, can you repeat that last part? I didn't quite understand what you meant by that.
So you have to keep the property open, and you can't rent it to someone else if the tenant is disputing whether or not you have a right to deny them.
Wow.
Unless you have 3 or fewer units. So if you're a small landlord, then that would be okay. Or if the property is vacant.
Are they indirectly saying you should be able to afford to wait if you got more than 3 units?
Yeah. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Well, I got, and there's other units that are available. So if someone's coming to rent, they can rent one of your other units. Although they could all be occupied. So it's a terrible bill.
Is that your summary, I guess?
Yes.
Okay. What we'll do is, there's some other questions on different topics. Unfortunately, we want to kind of stick to we'll probably go to about 10:30, but if so long as Paul is comfortable with that.
Yeah.
We want to stick to the 2 topics, the recent bill that Paul just discussed that's being proposed, and then obviously the evictions process, which Paul summarized in the beginning. Again, there's a reactions button on everyone's screen or mobile phone. In that reactions button, there's a raised hand icon. It may be at the bottom, but it should be a flat raised hand, and you just hit that and you'll pop up on my screen, and I'm going, first to last. Joseph Guillermini.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. In regards to what you were just talking about, I had emailed the Hapco forum. I saw an article related to that, and I believe it was in another state where they were trying to enact a similar measure, and it was challenged by landlords, and the judge actually declared that those regulations would be deemed unconstitutional and basically threw it out. So that's a little bit of good news. I hope that translates further down the line into other cities. But the judge felt that those regulations on the landlords and how that we run our business and do our background checks would be deemed unconstitutional. So I'm sure that we would challenge that, but I'm hoping that's good news and that this similar challenges could be put in place in Philadelphia should that regulation pass.
Yeah, yep, we all agree.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. That was actually in Minnesota. So hopefully they'll take that to heart in Philadelphia. Don't count on it.
Paul, there was a language in, I believe in the bill that says that if you use some type of blank service, so like some type of screening service, that if that service deems the tenant not being a good tenant to rent to, that would automatically, so that actually kind of hurts the tenants even more, doesn't it?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. I know you have to disclose that to the tenant, whatever
No,
source that you got the information from.
So what I mean is Hapco is aligned with National Tenant Network, and I typically use them to screen my tenants. More often than not, when I screen them, the service tells me not to rent to them because of how their credit looks and the different things that it states on their history on what it's evaluating. Is the language in the bill basically forcing me to not even give them the benefit of the doubt?
So no, it's twofold. So first, that's good that you use an outside company because then you would have a uniform written rental screening criteria.
Yeah.
Okay. But you have to make sure that that company knows what this law is, assuming it gets passed, and make sure that the company doesn't take into consideration the things they're not allowed to consider. So for instance, they cannot consider an eviction that did not result in a judgment. So if the person was filed on, but there was no judgment against them, that company can't consider it. A lot of landlords do consider the fact that there was an eviction filed against them, whether or not there was a judgment or not. So what this law will say is that they can't consider that anymore. So you have to work with your screening company because they, when you first get everything set up, they say to you, what are the criteria that you want us to consider when we either deny or accept the tenant? So they would have to be told that that's something that has to come out of their algorithm.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Joan, I think you already had questions. The next person is Stanley.
Yes. Hello, how are you? A very good meeting. Several questions. First of all, I went to register one of my properties, which is a legally zoned duplex, and they kept on kicking it back because according to the files, it's a single family. So should I just, now the problem is, as a duplex, I have somebody in each unit that would qualify for this assistance. How do we straighten that out?
Okay, so the first question I have for you is, what does your license say? Does that say 2 units or 1 unit?
No, it's a legally zoned duplex, yes.
But the city somehow cross-references it as 1 unit.
Right. I was not able to register it.
Okay, so the problem you have is that the computer systems in the city don't talk to each other. So the computer system that they use for the rental assistance is the one that has the OPA information. So they go by your property and the deed and what that is showing. So for some reason, there's some disconnect there. So what you're going to have to do is go and set up a virtual meeting through L&I and get that straightened out. So if you go on L&I's website, navigate to where it says set up a virtual meeting, set that up, and you can meet with them virtually and try and work through it. Good luck. Good luck now.
Okay. Second question.
No, seriously, they are aware of all these I won't say all these issues. They're aware of a lot of them. I've been talking with them. I used to have a direct connection and could get you hooked up directly. They got so inundated with it. They said, Paul, these people are just going to have to go on directly and schedule the virtual meeting.
Okay, the $250 that was quoted earlier, is that per
Yes.
property, per instance?
Per property.
Per
Yeah.
Unit, per tenant.
Yeah, per unit.
Okay, so if you have a property where there are three tenants involved, you're talking $750.
No.
No, that's one. That's-
So you do the whole property for that?
Yeah.
No. Well, hold on. You per unit. So if the unit has three
Okay. I got
tenants in there, it should be $250.
you. Okay,
But if the property has three tenants, you understand? Like a duplex has two tenants.
oh, I
Triplex
got
has
you.
three tenants. It's per unit.
All right, now, I have some legally room properties, 3 unrelated adults in a rental unit, all on the same lease. Is there a problem? We of course have to show that lease. Let's say one of the 3 tenants is behind in the rent and qualifies. Is there a problem showing that lease? Should we take the other 2 people off of it, or
No, that's fine. That's fine.
It's no problem. Okay.
You just need one person in the household that has a COVID financial hardship, and you're good.
All right. Those are my questions. Thank you. Very good Zoom meeting. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And by the way, the reactions is in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
For future reference.
My arm's a little tired. Okay.
Yeah, Stanley,
Thank
I know you were getting frustrated when me kept saying I saw you. I had other people in line. I knew you were there.
Okay, that's fine.
I got
That's
to be
fine. Thank you.
Judy has been waiting for her question. Judy Lamarand, her function, the hand is not working, so she's been trying to get to you in the chat. So Judy Lamarand, she's been waiting a while.
Yeah. So everyone, I know you're saying the tab doesn't work. It really does. Unless for some odd reason your computer screen is different from everybody else's. The reason that we're asking to raise hand is because it puts you in front of the screen faster. So Judy may be far on my screen and I can't see her. So right now I can't see Judy's name because of that. So what I'll do is
Can I talk now?
there you
Can
go.
Judy talk now?
Now I can. There you go. So
If the reason to terminate the lease and vacate the premises is the need for personal use of the property, what date would you advise issuing the termination of the lease and notice to vacate?
As of the date of termination of the lease. So whenever the lease terminates, don't renew it. And then you can go ahead and proceed based on termination of term.
Okay, so are they enforcing evictions now if that's the reason?
They're allowing us to go to court. We're getting judgments of possessions. The writs and aliases, what can't be executed until after May the 16th as of currently. But that may get extended.
But you can go to court for the personal use reason.
Yeah, you're basically going to court for termination of the term. Term
Okay.
of the lease ended, you terminated it, you can go ahead and proceed.
All right.
After
Thank
May the
you.
16th, currently. Currently. Don't make sure you have another place to stay
But,
in the
but
meantime.
we can go ahead and give the notice that the lease is terminated.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
thanks, Judy.
I saw something about the utilities. Just want to quick mention that how that works as far as the rental assistance goes. You can get back money in utilities that are owed back from March the 15th forward, up to $2,000 per utility. So $2,000 for gas, $2,000 for the electric, and $2,000 for the water sewer. And when I say you, that's the tenant can get that money. If you're putting out the money and then billing the tenant for it, then yes, you would be entitled to be reimbursed that up to $2,000 in back money. Tenants cannot get utility payments going forward. It's just for back utilities that are owed.
Hey, Mary, can you do me a favor? Can you post the name of that insurance company that you mentioned earlier in the chat? Thank you. Does anyone else have, Howard Bernstein?
Good morning. Thank you, Brian. Thanks, Paul. Question for you. I have a couple tenants who their income is in a gray area, meaning they moved into the units with folks who weren't necessarily on the lease, whose income has gone down. And now, trying to make the case that their rent, they have a hardship as a result of COVID which they do, is gray. And I'm trying to navigate the PHDC site and get information. And if you say, hey, before this you were getting $1,000 a month, you're still getting $1,000 a month. You couldn't afford it. You didn't have the income before. You weren't directly impacted. How's PHDC going to navigate or view something that kind of case?
Well, you said one of the tenants was making less money, right?
They're not on the lease. They might have been relying on a non government, non city stipulated support, those type of cases.
I would schedule an appointment virtually with the people
at PHDC.
Yes.
Okay.
And try and work through that issue and let them know what was happening. They want to give out this money, so they'll try and work with you to find out a way so that these people can apply and get the assistance.
Okay. Thanks, Paul.
Anybody else? Don't see any more raised hands. Stanley, you have another question? You got to hit the unmute button.
Yes, I do. To get Hapco involved in that program for $250, is there a form, fill in the blanks to get us involved, number one? And number two is, what's involved if you pick up where we started, where we have a property registered, or starting from zero where we haven't done anything?
To make it easy, how about you just call the Hapco office and actually speak to Priya, and she'll take good care of you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, great.
By the way, I see a question in the chat about if the tenant moved out and they're not cooperating and filing for rental assistance. Once the tenant is gone, you can no longer get rental assistance. The idea of rental assistance is to stop evictions, to keep tenants in the property. Once they're out, there's no more rental assistance that's available.
Hey, Jim, I think you had another question, Jim Bennett.
Yes. Paul, can you comment on which city council members may be a little prone to listen to us if we ask them to shoot down this bill? Because a written statement is great for generalities, but there are so darn many variables, it's impossible. So, okay, let's say I'm not going to consider eviction filings. Well, if it's the same tenant in the same house on the same job for the last 5 years, and every 6 months they're getting filed on, I don't want them. They're a headache. If they go from a $2,000 a month unit down to my $1,000 a month unit, maybe they've solved their own problem. If they just took on 3 new car payments at $500 a piece, maybe they're a nightmare. And there are so many variables, you really can't quantify it. It's all facts and circumstances.
Yeah, but before you do that, Howard, you might want to turn your video off. The council members, Dom, Green, Maria Quinones Sanchez, probably be helpful. The ones that are supporting the bill are your typical Kendra Brooks, Gaudier,
Bobby
Helen
Heenan is
Kim,
on there.
and Bobby Heenan. So it's those four are co-sponsors on the bill. When a bill gets introduced or is intended to be introduced, a co-signing memo goes out so that other council members can sign on to it. So those are the four that are signed on to the bill. Presumably the others aren't totally in favor of it. Doesn't mean they won't vote for it, but they're not totally in favor of it. So you can approach any of the other council members.
Thank you.
All right, well, I think we're gonna end it off here. We will be posting this video clip on the website. We appreciate everybody, and obviously we definitely appreciate Paul for giving us your insight. And again, you know, this is just his opinion. You know, please take it for what it is. Information again will be posted on the website, and if you're on the forum, I'm sure there'll be talk of different things that will result from this. And we appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you all. Take care. Have a great day.